Hello and welcome back to the Reading Corner. Today we are going to be looking at The Wisdom of the Enneagram by Don Richard Riso and Russ Hudson. I really enjoyed this book. It was a great journey in self-discovery for myself, and I definitely imagine that it will affect the way I view myself and my relationship with others going forward. I hope to take you along that same journey today. And before we get into it, if you enjoyed this video, please hit a like down below, and if you're interested in seeing more content, subscribe to the channel. First, let's establish a baseline understanding of what the Enneagram is. As you'll see on the screen, the Enneagram is a 9-pointed figure that represents 9 basic personality types. It comes from the Greek word ennea, meaning 9, and gramos, meaning figure. So the 9-figured personality type. And this is essentially a way of categorizing people based on their basic fears and desires. Unlike many other personality assessments and systems, it is less based on how someone may act externally and more based on what motivates and drives people. And it draws a lot of that based on what subconscious messages you received in your childhood and what things you're trying to compensate for sometimes in your personality and your ego. It is important to understand that as accurate as the Enneagram can be, it can never hope to completely describe the complex relationships that humans have, the complex emotions and thoughts that humans have. Even if you have accurately typed yourself, you will still find yourself identifying with other types and at times not identifying with what people would say are some of the basic ways that your type could or will act. And that's just normal level variance amongst human beings. On the other hand, I have found that the Enneagram has helped me to uncover some of my unspoken motivations and fears and to have meaningful conversations with people who are willing to open up about themselves. The authors of the book explain a couple ways that we can implement this information and how to use it and how not to use it. So the first thing that they say is to not use it to type other people and especially to make assumptions about people. And they explain this further saying, everyone has blind spots, and there are so many possible variations among the types that it is inevitable that we will simply not be familiar with all of them. Because of our own personal prejudices, it is also very likely that we have an outright aversion to some types. As you can see from what the authors have said, it can be very dangerous territory to type others, especially if we have biases against those types that we are placing them in. And the other thing that the authors caution against is allowing knowing our type to get in the way of our growth or to more rigidly form our personality. They say that knowledge of our type is just one step along our path towards spiritual transformation. And actually, what leads to transformation is the recognition that we are much more than our personality. And they explain this saying, when we begin to understand that we are not our personality, we also begin to realize that we are spiritual beings who have a personality and who are manifesting themselves through that personality. So the majority of this book is about the 9 personality types, which all have several subtypes. And the author's theory of personality development is that we all have basic messages that we received in our childhood, whether consciously or subconsciously, that define how we act today and define the basic fears and desires that we all have. And discovering these desires and fears can be a very painful, but at times very rewarding process. The authors explain that there is nothing inherently wrong with our basic desires, saying, the problem is that we try to fulfill it in misguided ways that lead us down paths that are ultimately self-defeating. There is a lot of important information to communicate about each of the 9 types. This chart communicates what I think is the most important and basic information about each of the 9 types. As you can see, there are 3 triads. the feeling triad, which is types 2 through 4, the thinking triad, which is types 5 through 7, and the instinctive triad, which is types 8 through 1. All the feeling triad types strive in different ways to be at peace with their emotions. All the thinking triad types try in different ways to be at peace with their thoughts. And all the instinctive triad types attempt to be at peace with their environment. All these types also have a basic fear and desire which is driven by that fear. The wisdom of the Enneagram further explains, which you don't see in this chart, and which you'll have to read the book to find, how each type looks when they are driven in a healthy manner by their personality and when they deteriorate into lower levels of their personality. The important thing to understand here is that every type has healthy functioning driven out of that desire and unhealthy functioning driven out of that desire. As the subtitle for this book suggests, which says The Complete Guide to Psychological and Spiritual Growth for the 9 Personality Types, this book is about more than just knowledge. The Enneagram is about more than just knowledge. It requires application. And the Enneagram is just the beginning of that transformation process. Understanding your type, as the authors say, is just the beginning of that transformation process, which strives at being completely present in every moment and understanding yourself much, much better. The authors provide 3 practical ways in which the Enneagram can be combined with spiritual transformation. These are becoming more present and aware, seeing your personality in action, and not acting upon your impulses. On top of this, the authors provide 9 layers for the process of transformation that it labels excavating our true selves. The first 3 of these layers that you will see are aimed towards understanding our personality, our basic desires, and who we are as people, and the story that we're telling ourselves really about who we are. The next 3 layers are about becoming present and aware, like the former advice, and understanding your bodily sensation, understanding your desires, and imagining yourself and understanding what you are doing in each moment. And finally, the 3rd layer is becoming more in tune with God or whatever spiritual being that you follow. The authors say that this transformational process can not only help ourselves, but future generations and break general racial curses of sorts, because many of our thoughts, many of our inner voices, and many of our attitudes towards life come from our parents, which can sometimes be very negative or damning, even if they're not meant to be that way. The authors explain further how this specifically can be very heroic. From this perspective, we can see that when we bring awareness to our habitual personality, we are healing not just our own problems, but also the destructive patterns that have been taking their toll for many generations, possibly for centuries within our bloodline. For my final rating, I am giving this 5 stars and 86 out of 100. I did feel that this was a helpful journey of self-discovery. I appreciated there were many helpful charts and quizzes throughout the book to keep me engaged. On the other hand, I did feel that it was maybe a little too prescriptive, and there was so many steps to follow that you can never hope to follow all of them, and you could really get lost in trying to follow all the steps that they are laying out. And I was left with some questions as well, such as what defines a healthy person, which they kept referring to, and are these really just social constructs, and what does it take to reach that? And I think they could have done a better job of addressing these questions as well. I highly encourage anyone watching this video to check out the Wisdom of the Enneagram themselves, as it is so chock full with information and would be a really good process of self-discovery for you as well. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.